Las Luchadoras, the wrestling women, who debuted in the 1962 film The Doctor of Doom, also known as El Médico Asesino, and wrestled, among others, the infamous Aztec ape, a creature concocted by the Doctor of Doom by combining the brain of the Aztec mummy with the body of a gorilla. But it's the second movie, Las Luchadoras contra la Momia Azteca, the wrestling women versus the Aztec mummy, 1964, which would bring this group of rather appealing-looking female wrestlers a unique type of cinematic immortality, as the female wrestler/superheroes, led by Loretta, played by Lorena Velasquez, and Ruby, also known as the Golden Rule, played by Elizabeth Campbell. Well, they take on a gang of criminals who are in search of the Aztec princess's treasure, which is, of course, guarded by the Aztec mummy. This muy loco movie, muy loco indeed, unites two of Mexico's most popular items: plenty of Zoftic and sweaty girls in tights in an action-packed bout with the long-haired Aztec mummy, who can now change into a snake or a bat. The evil criminals, led by a gang, they're basically led. The gang is led by two guys called two individuals called Fujita and Mao. They are both old-school Yellow Peril-style Oriental evil master villains, a la Fu Manchu. They go around murdering and abducting and hypnotically controlling beautiful young women, and at one point end up sending two beefy-looking male wrestlers disguised as women to confront the heroines in the ring. The chase finally leads to the tomb of the Aztec princess and her treasure, which is, of course, guarded by the mummy, who was once the warrior lover of the dead princess. Eventually, the Aztec mummy loses his temper when the Oriental villains steal a medallion from the princess's body, and the mummy kills the two Fu Manchu-like villains. La Luchadoras, the wrestling women, return to battle in Las Lobras del Ring, 1965, also known as the Wolves of the Ring, as well as Las Mujeres Panteras, 1966, the Panther Women. Films that received little or no distribution in the United States and are virtually unknown outside of Latin America. Now, the fifth and final wrestling women adventure, 1969's Las Luchadoras contra el Robot Asesino, also known as El Robot Asesino, also known as El Asesino Loco y El Sexo, also known as the Sex Monster, also known as the Wrestling Women versus the Murdering Robot, which was directed by Rene Cardona, vastly increases the series' TNA quotient, and did manage to receive distribution in the United States. Now, in the movie, the wrestlers, Gabby and Gemma, now they're two different actresses this time, Regina Tornay and Malu Reyes, are pitted against the villainy of Dr. Orlok, Joaquin Cordero, the star of 1960's Orlok El Infierno de Frankenstein, who abducts various scientists and, of course, also abducts beautiful women in order to construct an army of robots. Now, the lady wrestlers, the wrestling women, and their two boyfriends then destroy Dr. Orlok's secret laboratory, but the doctor returns to the attack by capturing their friend, Berta, played by Gloria Chavez, in order to challenge Gabby, Regina Tornay, in the wrestling ring. The evildoers are then unmasked and thrown off a cliff. The director, Cardona, follows the practice he established with Santo and Y El Tesoro de Dracula, 1968, also known as Santo and the Treasure of Dracula, and basically crafts or creates two different versions of the same movie, a less intense one for general consumption in Mexico, and a far more intense version loaded with lots of extra sex, nudity, and sadistic violence for the American and European adult markets. This more intense version was released as The Sex Monster in the U.S. and El Asesino Loco in El Sexo in Europe. As the late 1960s turned into the early 1970s, the gothic-flavored Mexican horror film would go into decline.